Again. So restarting because the live stream was buffering, and I think there was some sort of issue. Like I said, been having some issues with connectivity today. Feels like there's some disruptions out in the general sphere. Um, so just a brief discussion. I was talking about spiritual bypass, which was a term coined by John Wellwood in the 80s as he was monitoring what was happening in spiritual communities. And he was noticing that people were using the spiritual practices of these communities to bypass dealing with any of their trauma, any of their issues or anything like that. And so spiritual bypass really is just growth language, spiritual language that is being used as a means of avoidance, of avoiding something. So we're going to talk about some of that. So some people, they're not stuck because they're unconscious. They might be stuck because they're spiritually fluent. And we're going to be talking about some of the things that, and I've used some of these terms, so I know that it's true. Um, but I really want to just cleanly define it first. Hit that like button. Yep. Okay. Spiritual bypass is using spiritual concepts to avoid reality, to avoid responsibility, or to avoid discomfort. So, all of these, it may not be intentional, okay? Because there is, yeah, I restarted to hopefully it'll look a lot better. Kindred, hello, hello, beauty. So it's this isn't not always an intentional thing, okay? Um this is kind of a refined avoidance, much like spiritual or survival adaptation is um an avoidance of like facing things. It's like really just giving into fear when you're at that survival adaptation level. And you can be going through life just fine, operating under those survival conditions for a period of time and just be riding that wave. Just like with spiritual bypass, it's the same thing. Like, if we're going to get to a level of coherence and stability in our system, that's where we're going to be needing to be connected. Are you married? I am not married. What are you doing? I'm podcasting. What are you doing? Ringing the freak circus? What are you up to? I'm back. Yeah, I'm back, baby. Leo the Bed Wars guy. That sounds intense. All right. Um, so this is just another layer of avoidance, okay? So like survival adaptation, I would say would be avoidance of facing fears. All right. Just kind of giving in to whatever those fears are. Whereas this is more of an avoidance of responsibility and reality. Just thinking, sometimes I think, how can people just say, oh, Jesus is coming, and then just do nothing when, like, in the Bible, it clearly tells you to continue working, right? Um, but it's like this form of avoidance of responsibility for people to be saying that, and that's just an example of one way that spiritual bypass can happen. So why is it dangerous? Why is this dangerous? Now, the reason why is because it feels like growth. It feels like you're actually growing, you're connecting to the divine, and you're in this transcendental experience, and everything is love and light, and there's no earthly worries that you need to worry about. Why do you have water in a mason jar? I drink a lot of water. It's my drink. It's my drinking water. It's my moonshine. It's my moonshine. No, it's just water. I drink a lot of water and I love having that. I guess it is kind of distracting. I can hold it. It's not moonshine. It's filtered water. I guess I can put it on my little table. Okay. You're all good, babes. Okay, so when we're in this spiritual bypass, it's going to sound like we have awareness or wisdom, or that we're just like kind of in this detachment, or even just kind of surrendered to what's happening in the world around us. And I live in Eugene, Oregon, and so there's a large like it's a it's an older population, but there's this like hippie element to being here. And there is this like strange detachment from, normal processes. Like a lot of people will grow their own food, so they have this really this true detachment to grocery stores. They're not reliant as many people are on that grocery store, um, on the grocery stores providing their food. So you have this really interesting detachment. Um, and detachment is not bad. In fact, it is healthy, and you do want to have detachment. This is why it sounds like growth. It sounds and feels like growth when people are like, oh, I don't worry about that. And yeah, to a certain extent, you can do it, but like, there is a way of where it's just bypassing. It's not living in reality. Okay. You're missing some key fundamental things of how we're interacting with other people. So underneath it, these growths that sound, good on the surface are actually avoidance, right? Their fear, it's a part of its indecision, and it's also a lack of structure. Okay. It's You can stay exactly the same, and you can call it evolution, like you're still growing because you're in this more transcendental, like, out of reality situation. And that's why it's not dangerous in like, oh, you know things are going to happen. It's just you're not going to grow as deeply of a person if you're not doing that. Just like, um I think that people are put a lot of in the spiritual community, and this is my opinion, and you can take it or leave it. But there's a lot of people that will tell you, oh, it's you need to ascend, you need to ascend, you need to ascend. Yeah, you do, but you also need to descend. Okay. You need to descend into some of that, these things that you can avoid, because ascendance sounds good. This is spiritual bypass. If you're not descending and you're only ascending, I'm ascending, I'm ascending, I'm ascending. Healing is like going up a mountain, then coming down really hard, going up, coming down. Like you ebb and flow through life, dealing with the things that you're coming up on. Sometimes you go through a really difficult experience, you come out and you feel light as a feather, and then some time passes, and then some other, thing happens. Any form of grief. It could be grieving neglectful parents. It could be grieving a loss of parents. It could be grieving a loss of a pet. These things just continuously happen. It could be the loss of a job. All of these things are going to affect your identity, and they're going to affect your evolution. However, if you're just trying to climb and ascend, 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 and be light, love and light, love and light, love and light, you're missing out on a huge part of why we're here on this in this realm. And I think we can go to different realms. I definitely talked about that last episode of having that stability in your system. Like if you're doing avoidance, if you're latching on to fear, and you're kind of put into this indecisive um situation, and you don't have the structure, then heck yeah, you're going to like everything's going to fall apart. Heck yeah, those things are going to not work. Okay? Like if we're going to be growing and going, we also need to have that stability, and that requires descending as well. All right. You are looking like Moon Sister. Good morning. Have a colorful day. Thank you. My day's almost over. Please stop asking me for money. Sunny March, are you in the wrong chat room? I don't think I ever said anything about money. I think you're in another dimension. I think you might be in a different dimension, my friend. All right, let's talk about some common forms of spiritual bypass. What do they what do they sound like? What would you say to identify like this is me? So one is I'm waiting for alignment. Okay. I'm waiting for that to be aligned. Now, this can be true. However, if it's a part of an avoidance or a part of a fear tactic, you could be avoiding decision or risk or discomfort. There's things about whatever is in your life that you're facing that you don't want to go through. And so you're really working on detaching. And this is a flight fear response. You are handsome and intelligent and sophisticated and intelligent. Oh, well, thank you. I know some in some other realms people are asking for money. Um so saying I'm waiting for alignment or it's not in alignment, like saying that's could be a translation into like I'm avoiding a certain risk or something that is uncomfortable to me. um, Another thing that a person in spiritual bypass might say is I trust the universe. Okay, I trust the universe. And I say that all the time. I say, like, I trust the universe is going to take care of me and that everything that's happening is in my highest good. And I truly believe that. However, I also back that up with action. Okay. And that's what the structure is. I'm backing that up with action. I'm taking steps every day that I'm just not relying on what I'm saying. I'm like doing things to get me into whatever that might be and put me into situations where that might be. In fact, I took a train to Portland on Friday, and I know that every time I travel, when I like meet people out in the world, it is always for me some sort of divine appointment. There is a divine appointment in me going and meeting people out in the world. Okay? That and I got to sit next to a really fine young man. He was graduating from college and he was getting ready to like take action in his own life. And it wasn't an accident that we sat next to each other. We had a great, 20 to 30-minute conversation, and then we were in our own worlds, and then we parted ways, and it was amazing. Like I knew when I was sitting next to him and having that conversation that he needed to hear something that I had to say, and I needed to hear something that he had to say, and it was so encouraging. Okay, so I do trust the universe. I do trust the universe is putting me into situations and taking care of me in wherever I'm going. Handsome. Women could be handsome, I guess. Which country is it? Which country am I in? United States. Okay. So, saying I trust the universe, if it's a spiritual bypass, if we're avoiding responsibility or reality, this could be not taking action. Okay, that action that I was talking about, that's the structure behind where you're going. Okay, you do need to be taking action. um, by saying I trust the universe, you're saying you're not creating that structure, and you're outsourcing responsibility from yourself when we are the authors of our own vessel here. Okay, We know what is going on. We get to have a relationship with people around us. We get to have relationship with the divine, with God, and we can have a beautiful relationship with ourselves. But we need to recognize that that is our responsibility to be, you know, guiding that vessel to wherever it needs to go. All right. Having the conversations, not being fearful of like, oh, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to look silly. Gorgeous. I said generous. We are more generous than handsome. All right. So we really need to be thinking about what am I taking responsibility? And I talk about that all the time here. I talk about what is our, how are we in our own sovereignty? Meaning, how are we directing our agency? Are we giving it away? Are we utilizing it ourselves? Are we conscious if we're giving it away? How we're giving that responsibility away? Okay. Next is I'm doing the inner work, meaning I'm doing the inner work, so I'm not going to do anything externally. All right. So you're endlessly processing when you're doing the inner work. As much as I'd love to just be in my bedroom just thinking about all kinds of cool stuff, I also need to get out and kind of like interact with other people because they are my mirrors and see engage where am I? Am I am I going anywhere? Am I growing or am I just like stagnating by just remaining in my home? All right? So, I could be stuck in endless processing. There's going to be no external change if you're just continuously doing inner work. Okay. These things need harmony and balance. Remember, I pulled the temperance card, which is balance, integration, and harmony. This also needs to be done in our own lives, in our own work. Okay. And if you're saying, I'm doing the inner work and you don't have a behavioral shift and you're just continuing to do the same things over and over and over again, I had a friend I had to let go. I'd known this person for almost 30 years. No, at least 30 years, maybe a little over 30 years. I've known this person for a long time. And it was a constant cycle of I want to do things different, but then having no behavioral shifts. And it was so exhausting to me. I just finally recognized that this is an energy suck. I can't be involved in this anymore. And I had to part ways. I said, you know what? I cannot be in this cycle anymore. For me, it was just continuous energy suck and it was starting to affect my body. My body was awakening to like how things were interacting with me. And so now it's like such a great gauge for me to realize, am I in a good situation or am I in a not so good situation? And now that I'm recognizing that, what steps do I take to correct that so that I don't feel discomfort? Do I need to say something true? Do I need to say no? Do I need to change my behavior? What about this situation am I taking responsibility for? Okay. So doing the inner work is great, but it also needs to be um, there needs to be some shifts in the outside of your world. Another one. This one is a huge one. That doesn't not resonate. Okay. Um, and yeah, I've said this a few times, but again, you can say these things and they can be true and you can have growth behind them. But what I'm talking about is bypassing. So people will say this, that doesn't resonate, but then it's because they don't want the challenge. They're trying to avoid that challenge or they're trying to reject some sort of discomfort that they're feeling in their body. Okay. And then when they say that doesn't resonate, they're kind of pushing away something that's trying to teach them. So they stay in these preference loops of I prefer to be around this person, I prefer to be around this person because it's comfortable. It doesn't challenge me and I get to sit peacefully and do that stuff. Yeah, like and subscribe, peeps. Not sure if it went through, but hope you're doing well. Kappa, beautiful evening here in Oregon. I know I can hear the rain out there, but thanks, Ryan Bradley. Your rude truth sister, nice voice. Thank you. Woo-hoo. Oh, Zentura, beautiful. Hello and welcome, and thank you. All right, so that does not resonate is a huge one that I hear and I've used. So I know that I'm not using it in a bypass way because um, I don't know what it is about me, but anytime that there's a challenge, I'm like, dude, okay, now what do I got to do? What do I got to do? Okay. This is another one, and we're going to go into it a little bit deeper in my next episode. But people say that money is not spiritual. Okay, money is not spiritual when it is absolutely spiritual. Okay, money is simply energy. All right, and it's a tool. It's an exchange of energy. Energy. It took energy to make a lot of the things that are around us. Okay, so when we're thinking about how am I going to pay for something, it's like how am I going to um, shift the energy around so that I have that thing that I want. And a lot of people use money to get it, but you can borrow. Like there's many other ways, and money is just like cash money is just one way of holding energy. There's many other ways to do these energy transfers in our lives, okay? But if you're using it in a spiritual bypass sort of way, it's really translating into a fear of responsibility, okay? It's also an avoidance of structure. Remember, structure is really important. If we're going to be time traveling and going to different dimensions, we've got to have structure in ourselves. And I talked about that last week. The brain, the heart, and the body all need to be in alignment. They all need to be in agreement if you're going to be traveling to different realms. And I've sat back and observed many people that have like schizophrenia, have actual like beings they talk to, okay? And I've observed them. Paranoia, like there's definitely things out there. All right. But if we're going to be time traveling, into the past, into the future, into different dimensions, wherever, however it is structured, like we've got to be stable in ourselves. We've got to be in agreement, got to be in alignment. So that avoidance of structure is almost like there's something inside that's not in agreement, okay? People who say money is not spiritual are also rejecting uh, a part of material reality. Okay. Now, at the beginning, I was talking about how the spiritual bypass is kind of like avoiding responsibility, avoiding reality. Okay. This rejection of reality by just saying money isn't spiritual, and so I'm not even gonna be around it. I don't even care about it. Okay. I'll go a lot more into it next time. So, those are some ways that people might use spiritual bypass language, and some of them might be really common, some of it maybe not so common. All right. But going on into our next section, we're going to be talking about the nervous system underneath it. Okay. So, the spiritual bypass is not just mindset. Okay, you hear that mindset. We got to change our mindset. We need to get our mindset right. Okay. But really, what it is this is a regulation strategy, just like survival adaptation. Spiritual bypass is this like seemingly transcendental way to avoid and regulate yourself to keep going. Okay. And it has its purpose. I'm not going to say that it's completely like terrible if you do it. It has a purpose. It's getting you through another day. However, if you're not addressing the things that you're trying to avoid, it's just going to keep on coming up, coming up, coming up. All right. So people will bypass, they'll use these regulation strategies because reality feels unsafe. Whatever the reality is, it's unsafe. Okay. Decisions will feel risky. Decisions feel risky. So it'll keep you in this like loop of indecision. Have you ever been around a person that can't make a decision? They don't know what to order off the menu. So they're just like sitting there and you're just like, are you going to order something on the menu? Do you even know what you want? Okay. Indecision feels risky. They don't know what they want for dinner. What do you want for dinner? Oh, I don't care. Whatever you want. I have a friend who, her now ex-husband, all she wanted him to do was make a decision of what to have for dinner, and he just could not, for the life of him, choose anything for dinner. She's like, I don't even care what it is. It doesn't even have to be anything that pleases me. Just the fact that you made dinner and I didn't have to make any decisions. And he couldn't make a decision. Couldn't even go get a pizza. All right, you know what? I want pizza today. No, couldn't do that. Okay. Maybe it felt risky for him to make a bad decision. And that was just sitting in his system and he's not addressing it and just continuing to go through it. Being around indecisive people is, I don't know. I think it's hard to relate with them. Okay. All right. And then next, accountability feels exposing. If I take responsibility for that mistake I made, I might get fired. Okay. I might be exposed for being incompetent in my job and then lose it. And, I don't want to do that. So those are some ideals of how they are. Okay. So those are some reasons. And they do this because they do this and then they soften everything. They delay everything. They spiritualize everything. And that has a purpose, but having that be on all the time, um, I I would probably find a little annoying to be around. I would probably excuse myself from it. I'd just be like, I already told you guys that, just being around somebody that didn't have the behavioral shift, saying that they wanted to change, but then never did, was exhausting. It was exhausting to me energetically because I'm constantly having these discussions, giving advice, and then having my advice not even be taken. And it just, for the person that's like the action taker, it's like, oh, okay, well, you're not going to make any hard decisions. You're just going to like push this off and keep saying, oh, yeah, I want to change. And like, that's like the thing that you say all the time. Saying it is okay, that's one thing, but taking action and doing it is quite another. Okay. But really, what this is the nervous system choosing comfort over truth. Truth is really hard. Okay. I've realized in the last year and a half, I've done a lot of feminine distortion, like addressing feminine distortion within my own self. Not being able to say no, not being able to speak the truth, and seeing what harm that did to my system. Okay. Did a lot of, there was a lot of distortion in there and it did a lot of harm to my system. of how I appear. What do I say? How do I behave? You know, looking like you have it all together, but really just like inside feeling that in that energetic cognitive dissonance of my insides, okay? It's really nice to choose comfort over truth, but I'm just kind of coming into the realization that the truth just needs to be said, and I'm just going to say it. And it to heck with whomever is not doesn't want to like hear it. Okay? All right. Well, somebody out there wants to hear the truth about what's going on in our bodies, about how do we get into new dimensions. Like people are going to care about that. And it was really scary for me to even start my podcast, to be very frank and honest with you guys, because it's like, who's going to want to come with me? Are people going to like come into the chat and just like demolish me if I show my face and speak these really intense truths? All right. So, my nervous system, the work that I've been doing on it is to like get to a point where saying the truth, being shunned has zero effect or little effect on how I progress. And I've gotten really good about that. Okay. Now, let's talk about the heart distortion. So we've got our nervous system is working, okay? And the heart is this little brain inside of our chest, all right? And it gets kind of trampled on a little bit. A lot of people will say, I'm following my intuition, all right? But really, the driving force is fear, it's avoidance, or it's emotional discomfort. And so it's not really listening to my intuition. Okay. My heart is intuiting, um, but not every no is intuition. Some no's are just a form of protection, including that voice inside yourself that says, should I say the truth? And then eventually it's just like, no, that's a form of protection. Okay. So we've got this little heart distortion going on. And then I definitely went into it last episode, but the coherence break, okay? And I'll just briefly go over it in case you hadn't watched last week's stream. The coherence break is when your brain says this is aligned, your heart says this feels uncomfortable, and then the body says we're not moving. So remember that action's got to be going, the heart's got to be in it, and the mind can't be the only driver that gets you from point A to point B. All right? You're not going to become coherent if you're avoiding reality. And that reality is your body and your heart and your mind tied together. It's got to be anchored. It's got to be grounded into something, because if you start traveling out and you're not coherent and stable, you could get lost out there. I've seen it. It's pretty wild. Don't like what's going on. Don't like what going on here at all. Okay, Sunny. I think I looked it up. There's like 114 million. I think it's like 114 million YouTube channels. Yeah. I think 60 to 64 were like regular. So there's lots of choices for you. It's a beautiful thing. Unless you're starting to feel uncomfortable inside, which is happens. All right. So when the brain is like saying this is aligned, go, the heart is saying this is not comfortable, and the body's like, I'm not doing nothing. You end up with stagnation, you end up in confusion, and then you end up with a lack of results. Okay? You're, like I said, you're not going to become coherent if you're avoiding reality. I mean, unless you want to be in stagnation, unless you like to be confused and you don't want to take action, like that's completely your choice. Not telling you that that's not where you need to be. I'm not telling you how to do anything. I'm merely stating like if you're wanting to go to the heights in this body and in this realm, this is the path that we need to be taking, the action that we need to be taking, the things that we need to be looking at, the getting everything straightened out in agreement in our own bodies. Okay. Now, um, these are all just kind of add-ons to the spiritual bypass. Okay, is we also have this feminine distortion layer. Okay, so I talked um, a couple weeks ago, about the Lilith, Sophia, and Magdalene archetypes that are kind of running in not just our systems, but just in the culture in general. So when these feminine layers are distorted, the truth is softened. Okay. You try to find the nicest way to say the truth. And then wisdom gets externalized. All right. Wisdom is coming from that little heart space. Okay. And when you're quieting it and suppressing it, you're not allowing her to sit in your system. And it's important that that happens. I When I reread King Solomon asking for wisdom to rule the people of Israel last year, like it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, "Oh my gosh." In the moment that he unseated wisdom, the the kingdom split. Okay? And what are we talking about right now? We're talking about distortions where there's splits in our own system, all right? Um and then expression gets filtered. Do I want to dance and like be expressive, or am I like, I don't feel comfortable doing it in the dance studio, so I'm not going to do it? Okay. Suppression. Now, how that works on the spirituality of these individuals is, um, you'll see them be really agreeable, they'll be non-confrontational. All right. They'll seem like they're very safe, and they'll be really palatable. All right. So the truth will get replaced with what feels acceptable. So if it feels acceptable, it'll be softened. And I don't know if you're like me, I like things to be really intense. Maybe not all the time, but definitely like intensity. I'm just like, put hot sauce on it. Let's go. Flavor it up. Like, um, I want to have really deep experiences, but with this energy where there's suppression, that gets really softened, and um, it's almost like the egoist versus the narcissist. Little horseshoe analogy that I did. On one side you have the narcissist, on one side you have the egoist, and being extreme of both of these things is disagreeable, I think, to most people. You don't want to be around an extreme narcissist, but you also don't want to be around an extreme egoist where you're just like walking all over this person. That's what this spiritual bypass kind of tends to be like, where they're just kind of just agreeable to anything that you say. Um, and I don't know if you're like me, I like to watch videos where there's like arguments. I want to see where it goes. I want to hear the truth. Like, let the truth come out. Say the true thing. I enjoy watching that. I enjoy being around it. And then I also am incorporating, how do I be that? Okay. So there are a few distortions that show up. If the feminine energy is distorted, you're going to be avoiding the title of being too much. Like, I don't want to be too much. So I'm not even going to express how I am. So that raw truth gets repressed or suppressed. Okay. Um, the next distortion is, with the wisdom, instead of like feeling into that intuitive knowing for answers, you start looking out for answers. You start to ask other people, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Okay. So you're disconnected from that inner knowing, and we all have it. Man, woman, child, elder, we all have inner knowing. Like we're all built to have this available to us. So it really is, how are we um, correcting the distortions? Okay. Um, and then next, there's a silence of the embodied expression. Okay. This is where you're disconnected from your body. I remember about 8 to 15 years ago, I would say, like, I couldn't even name how I was feeling in the moment. It was all just completely numb. I was completely disconnected from my body, and I would say I feel disconnected. Like those words were coming out of my mouth. I didn't just wake up one day and like, oh, it's all fixed. Like it was an intentional, like, how do I course correct? And I am giving you guys the truth of how I course corrected, because maybe if you hear it, you can embody it in your own self. If some of these things are coming up and you're like, oh my gosh, I that is exactly how I feel right now. Just know that yes, you can get out of it. It's not something that you have to be in all the time, but it does take work, and it does take action. Action is work. Um, but that disconnected feeling from my body, I definitely know what that is. And now, like, I've done so much work that now I can feel that connection to my body again. Okay. So it is something that can be corrected. And I hope that it doesn't take you as many years as it took me to finally like reconnect with that, because it really is an amazing thing if you're not experiencing it, to experience it again. You're just like, oh my gosh, I feel like a return to myself. And it's a beautiful thing, like I said. So you get that embodied expression, and then you get that intuitive knowing of, there's something that's not going the way that I want it to. But what does my body say? What is my heart saying? What is my mind saying? And are they all in agreement? Is that the direction I want to go? Okay. So, why will people stay in bypass? Okay. This is one that's kind of easy for them. It's a way of protecting themselves. It's protecting their identity. I've done a lot of podcasts, streams on the topic of identity and why, from multiplicity to just having a firm identity. Again, it's going to come down to that stability of yourself, of having yourself so damn stable that when you are mom, friend, wife, sister, employee, that you're able to manage all of the identities, going online and having whatever your online avatar identities are, having those and holding those and being able to maintain your own stability within yourself, but from having all of these. And the digital identities is like this whole new concept that I don't think people really think about, how much it impacts their own personal way that they manage themselves. But it is such a huge thing. So really work on getting nice and stable and centered in yourself, so that as we're interacting with all of these different identities and roles and things that we do in everyday life, that um, you're able to come back to yourself and still be whole and in agreement with yourself. Okay. And that's just part of the part of the time traveling and part of the identity traveling, okay? But people will stay in bypass because it protects a certain part of their identity that they're comfortable with, and it protects their comfort as a whole. I feel comfortable with this. Protects their image. They have this one image that they're holding up. And we're multiple images, you guys. We have multiple identities, we have multiple roles, we have multiple things that we do in our day-to-day life that if we're not stable, it's any of those things could knock us over. And that's what happens. All right? There's it's no big surprise to me that people who start businesses, if they're not stable, those things are going to fail pretty quickly. Unless that's the intention. Like there's people that intentionally create businesses and purposely like close them. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about somebody has a great idea, they want to start doing it. Ask me how I know. They want to start doing it, they start doing it, and then like it fizzles out. It's because they're not stable in themselves. Okay? It's it is hard to like add another identity when you can barely manage the juggling of your own identities if you're not like timeline stable and coherent. Um, People will stay in bypass because it also protects their relationships. Maybe they like the relationships that they have. Maybe they like the way that their day to day goes. And you know, I'm not telling people to you know get out and get uncomfortable, but for the people that want to grow, you have to do that. You have to like pain and having stress and all the things that are seemingly negative in life are actually the things that test you of how are you going to grow? How are you going to get through this? It tests your fortitude of who you are. Okay? So leaving bypass, the spiritual bypass, means you've got to make real decisions. All right? You've got to set real boundaries that you really have to hold down. If you have a no and you have a reason why you're saying no, you're saying it and you're not relenting. You're saying it because you know it's true and you have to stand by it. Even if it means that a certain image or a certain comfort or a certain relationship or a certain job has to leave you because now you've expanded and you've gone into another place. During 2020, when people were like, I don't want to wear a mask, I don't want to take a vaccination, and their employers were forcing them to do that, or enforcing, I should say. They weren't forcing them, but they were enforcing it. You've got to do this. There was so many people that left their jobs knowing that they didn't have anything, and then they left their jobs and then they got an even better opportunity after that. It's like they were being rewarded for having those real decisions, standing by their intuition, setting up real boundaries for themselves, and taking like a certain responsibility and kind of trusting that everything is going to work out because it really does. This is energy work. Okay. You're pushing away one energy. You're saying, no, I don't want that energy. And it kind of opens the door to all these new energies. Okay. So bypass will keep your current life intact. Decide on whether or not you want to keep that life. Um, but it'll keep your life intact even if it's not evolving. Okay. Hi. Thank you for the insights and for being contagiously joyful. Thank you, Tim. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. All right. What does breaking bypass look like? Okay. It's not very dramatic. It might seem like it might be dramatic, but it's not that dramatic. Um, it's a very grounded decision. Okay. So breaking bypass will look like making a decision that you've been avoiding. Let's say that you've been going to your job and you're like, man, I really should like apply to other jobs. This job is like totally not it. Um, you know, Gary, my coworker, is just constantly annoying me. I've been added a whole bunch of work, whatever the thing is. Um, but for whatever reason, you're not getting on the computer and updating your resume and sending it out. Um, so that decision to change jobs has been avoiding. A lot of the times, like, you really want it, you'll get knocked out of that job. Oh, well, they cut your jobs. I don't think it's necessarily a terrible thing. I know that AI right now is like reshaping the business world and employment altogether. And while a lot of people are saying, like, I won't have a job, I just continuously see all these jobs open up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's kind of a little bit of a little treasure hunt out there for finding what's the best job for me. Okay, so that's some decisions that I look at and need to be making. All right. Breaking bypass, spiritual bypass will look like having a conversation that you delayed. Okay, great. Here's a great example. I have a friend, and she had an employer that was saying some derogative comments and having derogative conversations with her. And she was like, oh my gosh, I need to have this conversation and really set the boundary. And it took her 3 weeks to finally, like, put together what she wanted to say and hit send on the text message she texted him. But she, like, delayed this conversation for 3 weeks. She's like, I'm most certainly going to lose that job opportunity, and I'm okay with it right now. She was ready to walk away. And so she sent it, showed up to work, and could tell that there was a shift in her manager's behavior. Okay. So there's a behavior shift that happened for her. And they didn't really address it head to head. It was just like when those conversations started popping up, she could tell that he would, like, think before he spoke, respecting her boundary. So a job that she thought she was going to lose actually turned around of, um, you know what? I know this other person has been the primary person for any hours that are available, but now I want you to be the primary person to have whatever hours you want, and then I'll give the other hours away. So instead of that conversation that had been delayed ending in end of that relationship, that business relationship, she ended up having the business relationship and having her boundary respected. So it was a huge win for her. And it's really funny because I don't remember what it was for me. It was, I don't know. I always have a lot of things going on, and I'm always chatting with her about them. But something about an interaction that I had inspired her to finally hit send on that. And, like, within a week and a half, everything shifted because of her stepping in and not avoiding that conversation. Oh, is that Dr. Jerry McKinney giving me a fireball on my chat? Good to see you. Okay. So that's that's one outcome of, having that conversation, not delaying it anymore. Okay. The next one is setting a boundary where you softened it, and now you're like, you know what? No, I'm not going to soften that boundary. And you saw that with my friend. She set a boundary and held firm to it. She could have softened it, and there were some testing opportunities where that could have happened, but she did not do that. And her boundary, she said, her work um, her workplace relationship has never been better. It's never been better. Okay. All right. And then Another part of breaking bypass and what it actually looks like is creating structure where you've resisted it. Okay. Um, so if you've resisted putting structure into something somewhere in your life, and it doesn't mean building a pillar. This is, maybe it's saving money, saving money, and that's going to be your structure. Is I'm going to save, you know, $5,000 in the next year or whatever, and just have that because I want to have a nest that is comfortable for me. All right, I'm just giving out arbitrary numbers, but that's a structure where maybe instead of keeping that little safety net, or what do they call it, a nest egg, before you were just like leaking it out, add to cart, send it, it arrived, woo, and then you're living paycheck to paycheck. So creating structure is, nope, I'm gonna save a little nest egg. Maybe it's 5,000, and then once I hit that, then I can go to my next number because now I've shown myself that I can actually create and hold that structure. Okay. And like I said, if you don't have coherence, these things are going to be really difficult to do. All right. So breaking bypass ultimately means that growth is becoming visible for you. You're having visible changes in your life. You bunch of leg growers. I don't know what that means. Leg growers. I don't know. I don't know what you mean, Brett Snyder. 2598. Okay. Moving on. I'm almost done. We're going to be talking about the edge. So, reality as a spiritual practice. Probably a troll. I don't know. He's not trolling yet. I don't know what that is. I'm not really good at riddles. Brett Snyder. 2598. Okay. So, reality as a spiritual practice. So, your life is not separate from your spirituality. Okay. Your life is a test of your spirituality. Okay. It's not how you feel, it's not what you believe, it's not what you say. Mech. Oh, is that mech? Hilarious. But it's what you choose, it's what you build, and it's what you maintain. All right. So I'll say that again. Your life is not separate from your spirituality. It's the test of it. We need to have tests in our life. Anytime that I feel peaceful and like it's been going on for a while and I'm like, man, I'm just floating by, feeling good on that lazy river. Amazing. Um Anytime that happens, then there's a part of me that starts like saying, well, but how are you really? Like, let's go out and meet people and talk to them, and how are you interacting, and how are you at holding your boundaries with them? Okay, you got to have tests. So it's not how you feel, it's not what you believe, and it's not what you say, but it's what you choose, all right? What you build and what you maintain. Are we dabbing? There we go. All right. So what are we choosing, building, and maintaining? Um, so you can't talk about alignment. I'm waiting for alignment. What is alignment? Alignment is getting all these like dead center as much as possible in as much harmony as you can without avoiding the extremes in life. There's a saying like you want to walk the straight road. You want the narrow road. You don't want the wide road. If you're living out in the wide road, all right, there's a lot of things going on out there. Okay? We really want to be on that narrow road, which is following the harmony of life. Okay? So, but you can't talk about alignment if you're going to be avoiding money and structure and responsibility. Okay? Because money is going to show you exactly where you're bypassing. Okay? And we're going to get into that next episode. All right. So just to close, how many leg up there in PA? This leg grower concept is way beyond me right now. I have no idea what's going on. All right. So, just in closing, spirituality is not here to make you feel safe. Okay. It's here to make you real. We want to be real people. We want to really grow. We don't want to be like, I think anything else is fear. I think, allegedly. Could it be? Okay. And reality is where your growth either becomes visible or stays a concept. Okay. Do you want to be living in concepts? Do you want to have this paper ideal around you? Or do you want to have it really becoming visible? Okay. Well, I hope this has called you out. If you are listening and you're resonating and you're like, wow, um, that's shed some light on different parts of my life, I hope that is the outcome for you. If it offended you, great. I'm glad. If it activated you, amazing. Keep that fire alive. Um, we're waking up. We're getting really nice and coherent with ourselves. And right now, we're still in building the structure part of the podcast. And then we're going to be going in. So we started with foundation. We moved away from that into structure. That's where we're at now. And then we'll move on to, I have 4 different, I don't want to say units because I'm not like necessarily a teacher. I'm just out here like speaking the things. But the next unit, we'll just use it. How many? I love this point. Yes, absolutely. I was pretty shocked when I did my own little like, am I in spiritual bypass? And I definitely have used spiritual bypass as a tool to like avoid things, much like working has helped me avoid my feelings. Um, but I'm definitely like shifted into, okay, what's my next thing? In fact, when I started the podcast, I was in one mindset, and now like I've shifted from that, really just teaching and talking about concepts, into actually embodying and integrating these concepts, so that my and I'm like, okay, now what is, after I've embodied and integrated, what is my next? What's next? What am I working on next? And so I definitely have a few different options to choose, or maybe choose multiple options, but it's going to be amazing. So stay tuned. If you're here and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the content, if it woke you up, if it offended you, activated you, like let's go. I stream every Tuesday at 5:30 Pacific Daylight Time right now. And so hitting that like, subscribing, and then hitting the notification bell will help you know when I'm live. And then I also do some little side streams. I'm trying to get a different setup going, and so I'm working on that. So stay tuned for some changes. I'm hoping it's going to elevate um, the the streams, the podcasts, and be able to invite some guests on, because my old computer just kind of died and wouldn't let me do it anymore. But all right, this has been Celestic Intelligence Podcast. I am Amelie and I am signing off. Thank you guys so much. I love you guys. Have a good evening. Take care of yourself.